a chance to gain reward. I will spend on you, he says, all who spend in good cause. Good deeds are opportunities, sparkling bright and true, raising you in the sight of Allah and adorning Al-Jannah for you. So rush to earn his reward. Don't forget the oppressed. And when you go to sleep at night.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to Time to Please Allah. I am joined by Brother Muhammad Bano and Brother Adil Yusuf. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
How are you, akhi?
Alhamdulillah, very good.
The issue of whether I can cover the hair but wear jeans, or I can just like wear like a longer shirt a little bit but show everything that's tight, or this is something that is not really debatable, right? And really it's sad sometimes to see that people tend to say that, well, in this culture, in that culture, or this or that, we can adapt it to this way. I mean, the looseness is the Sharia thing. Now the color, or maybe a little bit, there might be a little bit of flexibility here as long as it doesn't attract and so on. But in terms of like, I can wear like a, Paris Hilton, abaya or something like that, that is,
Again, what Brother Adil was saying, but that it's more of behavior. The hijab is more like the way you act and you show yourself, present yourself. Because the way you're mentioning the ayah, even how the Sahaba, the women of the Sahaba, radiallahu anhu, how they applied it, shows that the Muslims back in the day, the Sahaba, were not picking and choosing from the Quran or the Sunnah. The order reveals, khalas, yani, you see, same thing with the ayah of the khamr, the alcohol. Anas says that they started like pouring khamr on the streets of Medina, became rivers. To that extent, because they had like too much of it.
Well, that's the beautiful thing, that
that's the main thing.
Was there.
Exactly.
Right?
Now you see people, they're trying, you would see sister, I would feel sorry for them. You'd see her like trying to cover, at the same time trying to be attractive. Like, I don't know, she's having double personality. I don't know what is, by the way, not only sisters, also I would say some brothers also doing that.
Okay, well, now you mentioned the brothers. What about the brothers, Adil? What's the deal with that? Because a lot of the brothers say, sister, do this, and he's like wearing like the latest, tight, what do you call skinny pants, right? Or skinny jeans, or whatever they call it.
No, you're absolutely right. I think when it comes to the man, it's different, but there is for sure there is a hijab for the man. And in Surah An-Nur, the hijab for the man is given before the hijab for the woman, in the order of the ayat. So what is the hijab for the man? Well, simply put, it's to lower the gaze in terms of an action. However, to internalize what it means for a man to actually lower his gaze is a different story altogether, right? To tell a guy to, just lower your gaze when
everything's fine,
and that's it. It's easier said than actually done for the majority of men, and to actually internalize that is a different thing. So because it actually affects numerous aspects of a person's life, of a man's life. For example, he's at work, he has to interact with women, he has to do different things. What should he do in this situation, right? Is he gonna lower his gaze non-stop and now and then the argument develops. If a person gets offended, then what do you do? And so it's not as black and white. However, the main thing, or the main concern with this, is that if a person, a human being, a Muslim needs to internalize the fact that there's something deeper here than just the physical lowering of a gaze.
Right.
There is something a lot deeper and happening with such actions.
And flipping back to women now, the ayah goes on to talk about that they should not strike their feet when they walk, right? And this is something amazing, because Allah orders them to cover, and then it says that they should not. So this is another, you talked about the women, okay, they're trying to cover, but they're trying to be attractive at the same time. And you find, subhanAllah, especially in many of the Muslim countries, we don't want to name A, B, C, D, but you go in and the sister's wearing like niqab, but and like just making noise, and it's just, subhanAllah, it's attracting attention, her whole makeup under and everything is all ready, and it's just kind of causing more fitna than some of the women who are not covered, right? And wearing those, pink shoes or something like that, and high heels or something like that,
Yes.
with the flashy bags and flashy stuff on the abaya, and now the whole fashion of the belt on the abaya, which a lot of the ulama have actually given fatwa against, and sisters have to be careful of that, because this whole tightening, this reveals the shape. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says it's not the end that you just cover. As you said, it's a whole, you have to internalize it now. Okay, you can cover, you've covered everything, and then when you pass by, all the men are wondering what's going on under it, and because the way you're walking and the way you're talking and the way you're moving and the way you're speaking and so on, or looking and all of that. So this is more to that, as you said, than just the physical and so on.
And you mentioned specifically the youth and how this affects them. And of course, we can talk about the men within the youth, the young boys and the women within the youth, and how it affects them. And the fact that you mentioned as well that there might be a sister wearing hijab, but then she might be doing other things, or wearing something else, yet covering her head. And so there's also, it goes back to internalizing, understanding your surroundings. And a lot of the time people are affected by their surroundings. So,
Right.
Who are you hanging out with? Who are your friends? Who's your community? Where are you working? All of these things have a huge impact on the mindset, and even ultimately the beliefs of the people, and especially the youth. So,
Right.
When they have their idols, now who are their idols? Are they Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Umar, Abu Bakr, radiallahu anhu, or are they, some other people who appear on television, or this and that?
And the answer is very obvious.
And it is obvious. Now, the question that I want to pose to you, inshallah, the both of
And
you,
to the audience, inshallah.
and to the audience, inshallah, is that if this is the situation, then what is one to do with, let's say it's the parent. The parents might have this question that we've got a child in this situation now, who obviously we want the child to have a good education.
Right.
We want him to be part of the community. Yet these things are obviously within the community. And he's affected by this. So what do we do in this situation?
So I like the conversations were very nice, because we've established there's a problem. Yes. We've established that there's a duty to be done from the Quran and Sunnah, and we've established now that we need to take an action.
Again, we come to the point, of the willingness to follow the orders of Allah, as is, like.
And that's something beautiful that you said, because when the women in the Ansar, when the ayah came, that's what it showed. It showed a submission.
Exactly, that's the word.
And it showed submission of that they heard, sami'na wa ta'ana. And you made a point of give an example about alcohol. It was kind of the same. Something that came into my mind is about the prohibition, when the prohibition took place in the United States, right? Why? They knew that as a country that, alcohol is not good. It's causing us, it's a social issue, it's a problem. It's causing us to really suffer. So they prohibited. But people started bootlegging, because people were not trained. So, over the years, they had to legalize it, right? Because they said, we can't handle this, right? The people are demanding, they want to commit this sin. So we're just going to make it legal and just deal with it. However, with the Muslims, it took them minutes to just, make the streets of Medina. Why? Because they had the faith. That's the whole point. They submitted. Today people they love to question, what about this? What about, does it mean that, I can interpret it, I should just cover it? The Prophet ﷺ said this. فَلَا وَرَبِّكَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ حَتَّى يُحَكِّمُكَ فِيمَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُم. SubhanAllah. You will not believe fully till they make the Prophet ﷺ the hujjah, or the hakim, and follow him. So it shows submission. But to what you said, though, the other thing is that the Prophet ﷺ, he was revealed these verses, and he told the men also, and they informed the women. So here it shows also the aspect of education. Education is very important. I would say that that's probably the first step that we need to take with regards to the youth, with regards to everyone in our community, that we need to educate them. Like, people don't know where are the verses of hijab in the Quran. What is the tafsir about this, right? People just think that, I heard that, I can just dress modestly and be fine.
Usually we have problem with the sisters is that they don't have time to seek knowledge. Usually that's the situation. Either she is in the house of her father, she's studying, she's in the university, she's married, she has kids. That's how it is the scenario of her life. So
that would go back to the
man,
husband now.
yeah, the man has to educate her, just like the Sahaba radiallahu anhum have done. If the man does not take this responsibility, plus that the protection that we're talking about, that the man should order his wife or his sister or his mother even. There's weak hadith actually that says this meaning that the man will be punished in the day of judgment because of the disobedience of the 4 women around his mother, his sister, his daughter, his wife. So we are kind of responsible because she's not going to khutbah, she's not going to lectures usually, she's not going to Friday prayers, she's not going to all these congregation where the man is, there's halaqah in the masjid, there's a lot of things going on in his life. So woman needs to be like, cared for, because the sister, she's asking again, is it okay to decorate? That shows that in her house, for example, Allah alam, she's not getting enough knowledge. You see always sisters calling us.
Yes,
that's the point.
It also shows that the willingness of women
they have the care.
Learn, right? They want to learn.
But nobody is showing them the way.
Right.
That's unfortunate that the brothers has to step up and learn the deen actually. Because he cannot teach, most of them are, unfortunately, they don't have the proper level of Islamic education. They have other fields covered. So that's the man has to seek knowledge. At least, something he can teach his wife. You're not excused to teach your wife.
Right.
That's the bare minimum you have to do.
And again, that teaching will be passed on to the children.
Of course.
So I mean, it's connected. Anyway, we'll take another break, inshallah. So just we'll be right back in a few minutes, inshallah.
To please Allah, a chance He won't, I will spend on you, He says.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, and we are talking about hijab. If you're just joining us, we are here with Brother Adil and Brother Muhammad. Amazing discussion, very fruitful, I think very beneficial. And for the time remaining, we want to touch upon a few other points. Let's move on back now. Let's move on to the men again. We kind of flip between the women and the men. But when it comes to the issue of the men, the beard is something that we talked about in previous episodes. But that's something again that is a part of the male hijab almost, and it's a protection for him. It's an identification for him. That this is a person who is. I remember sometimes crossing the border and they were saying the guys at the border asking. I remember one brother, he was asked that about the beard. He's like, is this for knowledge or for for fashion? So he said for knowledge, right? So people know that if someone has a beard, like there's something there. It's not just for fashion, right? So this is something also important. But we find sadly most of the brothers do not observe that, right? They just kind of like, they can blend in by shaving and just wearing whatever. Yes. While the sisters, again, as you said, they kind of stand out and they're the representatives of Islam. So what can men do more, Adil, to support their wives and to be by their sides, right? Again, we said, that whole picture of the woman all covered and the men like, Gucci and, they can CK and so on.
No, that's true. I think there have been situations where, mashallah, there have been sisters who have had a good education and belonged to a good household and gained an education. So education was not a factor, and even went and did Islamic courses for months and years, but then ultimately ended up moving away from hijab altogether, and they ended up removing hijab. So that is also a situation. And I think, so the question is why?
Yeah,
why are there people who are so adamant to leave hijab or question hijab, and at the same time there are people who do it? So in this situation, it's a lot to do with the self-esteem of a woman as well. How is she feeling about herself? And that obviously the husband has a huge role to play in that. If the husband doesn't give the support, the emotional support to his wife, then there is it's basically a catastrophe waiting to happen, because this is something that it is inbuilt in women. That's why we have the woman, for example, if she's leaving hijab, and the ultimate reason for her to leave hijab, something that is so basic within Islam, something so you talked about.
It is basic, as you're saying. It's not something like people think that if I wear hijab, I'm like, oh, super
how it's
Muslim.
actually, if you look generally at the Islam and the things that are forbidden and and not forbidden, that there are very few things that are clear-cut, sort of, halal and haram, and one of them is the hijab, right? So this is something that is obligatory, and it's not, there's no discussion in terms. There's a discussion, as you said, on the niqab, but there's no discussion on the fact that there's hijab. So something which is such a foundation, a concept which is so basic. Why does this happen? So the women who feel that the pressures of society, that's at the forefront of their minds. What does these people, what do they think of me? How will I live amongst them? How will I show my face to society? How will I go about my daily business? To the extent then that might even extend into your family, because there might be a situation where your family are not as practicing, right? Or there might be even pressure on you from your family and your friends, of course, that what is this hijab, or why are you growing a beard, or why don't you come with us to mix with other people, and men and women are mixing there in such events. So there's a lot of pressure in that sense, and so I feel that the reaction to such a situation is to be a little bit more soft, because Allah knows best what the situation they've gone through in their life that led them towards this. As human beings, we can't judge. So it could be that they face very difficult situations throughout their life, and they are at this sort of pivotal moment now, whether they commit themselves to submission to Allah and wear the hijab and obey the instructions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or they remain as they are, which is sort of in between. So they love Allah, undoubtedly, they love Allah and they love the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but this is something they struggle with due to the pressures that surround them. And it's
there's a difference between that and someone saying that, like someone like that, and saying that, I'm not there yet. I want to. There's different things. I'm struggling with it, and someone saying that I don't need hijab. It's not obligatory. It's not something that this is something backwards from 14 centuries ago. We're in a new culture. Islam recognizes modern times and tatawwur, and so on, right? So this is but you said something amazing though about the husband's role in supporting his wife, and I believe that psychologically speaking, that emotional support, if a woman is not made to feel beautiful by her husband, then she will seek that appreciation somewhere else. And a lot of times the ones who remove the hijab, the ones who show their beauty, is because they're looking for appreciation. They're looking for someone to say that they're beautiful. This is something important, that if a wife is not given that, if her family is not appreciating her, then this might be one of the causes. And not just the husband, but also the father plays a very important role, because he's the first male figure in her life. Women, they have a very strong connection to the father. A lot of people don't understand, psychologically speaking, there's a very strong connection to the father. So the father is always, raising his daughter, saying that you're a princess, a Muslim, beautiful, this. And she's not gonna want to, look for some guy who's gonna appreciate her, right? Because she's already getting it, and then she'll get married, and that will be transferred to her husband, right? Appreciating her and loving her and supporting her. So that's something maybe I want to take the discussion towards that. Okay, how do we instill this love of the hijab? As you said, how do you bring that in about both men and women, about covering? Because that was the question that was one of the questions that was asked. Is okay, like the little girls, right, 4, 5, 6, 7, slowly reaching into puberty. You can't say that, oh, now you reach puberty, okay, Amina, tomorrow you're wearing hijab. It's not going to happen. A lot of the people, and then parents are calling us and, in crisis that my daughter doesn't wear hijab. She's 14 now. She looks like a woman, and now she's, walking around wearing, skanky clothes, right? What should I do? And then I remember the sheikh saying, like, wait a second, when did you tell her about hijab? Last night at 11 o'clock, before her birthday. And the sheikh's like, what are you talking? This is a lifelong process. So how can parents instill this love of hijab?
As you said, the father, the first male figure, he has to take this role, that he has to upbring this girl, in general, the house, in Islamic format, Actually, some shuyukh, they take it even before, when you marry their mother.
Who are you going to pick?
Yeah, that's where you start from. You don't start after you marry and then you try to fix the mother, and then you keep trying to fix. Always prevention is better than cure.
Right.
So if the father is religious himself, that's the main thing. If the husband himself is religious, yani if he's preserving the laws of Allah, if he's lowering his gaze, if he's like covering himself, you know, like again, you talk about the beard, right? I remember yani, going to Canada at the stage of high school. It was very difficult for me, except when I started having beard, girls started running away from me. So that's in of
Before
itself.
they're running towards you.
Yeah, in of itself is the hijab. So Allah is protecting you. No, seriously, and I tell the brothers that this is the reason that, and because I had little hair here, little bit here, little bit here. It was like kind of unorganized facial hair. Huh? And I was trying to preserve, you know, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had ordered me this, and my parents used to put pressure on me, telling me, you know, this is not nice, shave it, it's gonna come out again. So this is when you are willing, again, acceptance of the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how Allah wants you to live as a believer. You know, when you are willing to do this, then it's just a matter of time where your daughter, your wife, they're all gonna follow the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah, I think as the brother said, you know, it's important to, as you said, sorry, that it's important to also gain an education and understand the core beliefs, the core practices. This is what it is. It's a lifelong ambition. There's not any point in time that someone can say, okay, I've achieved, you know, something. I've completed my hijab, and now I'm going to move on to something else. This is a lifelong situation.
But when it comes to the children and raising the children, is that instilling the love of hijab in the daughter, instilling also the love of hijab in the son, because he should love the hijab, that he should, when he grows up, he respects it, you know, like the family has to train even that boy. He won't just pull like his sister's hijab off and be like, what is this? And, I mean, he himself would learn to respect it. He has to be trained to respect that hijab and how he will dress when he grows up and how he will select his wife. So I mean, it's not that you must just do it, because they love it, that they feel that subhanallah, this is my identity, this is what Allah has ordered me. Make some beautiful stories about the hijab from the Sahaba and whatever there is, that from the Akthar of the of the Sahaba and the history of Islam. There's beautiful things and stories. Instead of them watching I don't know what, Ben 10 and so on, but to tell them these things, right? To bring it about them before bedtime, right? To see and observe the family, and this is something that I believe would in the imprinting stage would have an effect on their hearts, and without a doubt when they grow up and it's time to take the hijab, it's not like they'll just do it by themselves. Wallahu a'lam.
Absolutely. And
last comment.
Last comment, inshallah. It's about, as you said, making it normal, right? The issue arises when the belief becomes that this is not normal. But if the belief from the beginning is that this is completely normal, my parents did it, I was taught this, this is good, then inshallah there's no problem. So it's about normalizing, and from the parents' perspective, making your children feel that they're doing something good and normal. Inshallah. So
طيب, Jazakumullah khair for watching this amazing episode, inshallah. Khair for the guest, Brother Adil, Brother Muhammad, and inshallah we will see you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Time to please Allah, a chance to gain reward. I will spend on you, he says, on all who spend in good cause. Good deeds are opportunities, sparkling bright and true, raising you in the sight of Allah and adorning Al-Jannah for you. So rush to earn